'Twas the vlog before Christmas, part 2. Again, late, of course. Last week was one of the busiest weeks I've had since September. So, sorry again, guys, that this vlog is late. I'm not going to make any promises about part 3. However, they will be up before Christmas. I can promise you that. And part 2 is here now. So with part 2, I had a few ideas in mind. I did make a couple of plans in mind, but you guys know me. Last minute ideas hit me, and we're going to change the plans a little bit. So, okay, it's Christmas. So let's talk about Christmas. Everybody has that wonderful Christmas list they make every single year, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys my Christmas list. I'm not going to say, oh, I want this book, I want that prop, I want everything. This is kind of one of those superficial lists, and I am encouraging all of you guys that are listening to this to actually post in the comments your wish list or your Christmas list in this sense. Now, of course, everybody, or at least I hope almost everybody in the world, wishes for world peace, all the continents, all the countries and everything getting along, peace on earth, and everybody have free will, etc., etc. And I'm sure one day, once we get rid of a couple of people, no names will be mentioned, that might happen. But looking over that, I'm going to shrink it down to a few other things. Now, growing up, I grew up in a family of only 4 people. Myself, my mother, my brother, and my grandmother. We also have my aunt and uncle, who actually they live a block away. But for the most part, it was the 4 of us most of the time. So I grew up in a very, very small family, which is another reason why I'm so grateful for where I am today, where I could actually say that everybody I work with on Dark Avenger Inc. Are also part of my family. I have a fiance, I have a son coming, and a lot of other amazing things. And I feel like I talk about him every single vlog video I can now. But anyway, beside the point, getting over the fact about being a dad and everything. So growing up in a small family, we always had those special Christmas lists where when we were kids, me and Michael, of course, this is before we knew Santa Claus and stuff like that. So we always had our list to Santa Claus, and I remember this one year, I had asked my mom for a ton of stuff. It was during Jurassic Park, The Lost World, I believe. And I wanted a ton of toys from Jurassic Park, from The Lost World. And then halfway through, after my mom bought like half the presents, she told me years later, I decided to change my entire Christmas list around. And my poor mother had to go all the way back to Toys R Us, give all the toys that she bought back, and trade them for the other toys I wanted instead. That's how crazy my mother was. She didn't say, well, you made your list and that's that. She went nuts. And I remember when Power Rangers first came in, my mother was one of those people. She was like one of those parents that was first in line for everything. My brother and I always ended up somehow getting everything we had asked for, at least the big stuff we asked for on our Christmas list. But this is a different kind of what I would love for Christmas. This is something a little more, something that you can't buy in a store, honestly. And what I would love for Christmas, and I know it wouldn't be able to happen overnight or over a holiday. It would take time, but it would be as much as I enjoy. And this could be, by the way, guys, in the comments, you can feel free to pick any comic company you want, any faction you want, any series, any character. For me, and I know all you guys already know this is coming, the one thing I would love to see, and I love the New 52, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are points in the New 52 that make me go, but the one thing that is the closest to heart for me is Superman. And I feel like Man of Steel was good, minus the one scene that we will not talk about, because apparently that is the one most controversial scene, and either you were agreeing with it or you weren't agreeing with it. I'm not here to debate that scene with you guys. I have my point of view. Everybody else has their point of view, and that's fine. I look, if you love the movie despite that part, great, good for you guys. If you are like me, one that says Superman doesn't kill no matter what, that's great also. It's good to have you on my side, but at the same time, it was a great movie. But the one thing I don't like that DC is doing lately with Superman is they're trying to make him more gritty, trying to make him more quote unquote believable. The one thing I'd love to see, not only in Superman, but in comic books in general is, and this was in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and 60s and 50s, 40s, and even the late 30s when comics started, the writers realized they were writing a fantasy world. It was a fake universe that they could basically do whatever they wanted to because it was fantasy. They weren't looking to make it as real as possible or as gritty as possible. They were looking to actually give a amazing sci-fi story or cosmic story or what have you, but they understood it was fiction, it was fantasy. Nowadays, I feel like, especially DC's New 52 is the biggest example of this. They're trying so hard to make comic books more realistic, more relatable. We shouldn't be able to relate to Superman. He is an alien from outer space with powers beyond that of a mortal man. There's no way you can make him relatable. Even if you make his Clark Kent persona relatable, it's impossible. There are no ways. The only character in the DC universe that any human being can relate to is Batman. Why? He has no superpowers. All he has is a bunch of training and a bunch of gadgets, and he's a millionaire. Just like in Marvel, Iron Man, Tony Stark, is a normal guy in an iron costume or an iron suit with a bunch of gadgets in the suit. There's nothing super special about either one of those characters. They're normal human beings. They are just really intelligent, and they know what to do with their intelligence. But going back, I would like to see in the coming year or as we move forward, not only from DC but Marvel as well, because I feel both the big two companies have really fallen out of this realization that they are writing fantasy comic books. They're not reality comic books. They're not comic books that we have to be able to relate with. We're not looking for super gigantic. I mean, when it comes to Marvel, whenever they say a shocking new turn, it bores me now because every event, every big story arc has a shock factor to it. And you know what? It's not shocking anymore. It's just, I feel like I've been numb to the shock factor because, okay, for example, Uncanny Avengers. They killed Rogue and they killed Scarlet Witch. I'm not shocked because I know they'll be back in a year, 2 years, whatever. The writer even said, I'm just benching them for a little while. Okay? Look at the Wasp. She died the whole Bendis run. And then she came back right before Bendis left the Avengers. Death is not something that's permanent in the comic universes, except the Ultimate Universe. But apparently, the Ultimate Universe is going to be completely dead by March, which I actually don't like either. But besides, it's fantasy. And I really, really, really wish the writers would understand that they're writing fantasy comics and stop trying to push the gritty, more realistic stories to, with everything. I wish they would seriously just understand it's a fantasy story. Stop it. Stop trying to make things so real and stuff like that. But unfortunately, that's not what they're doing right now. There's a lot of big events. That's what everybody's talking about, big events. And after the New 52, I feel like Superman was changed the most out of every single character in the DC line, and that is what really bothered me the most, as this was a character before the New 52 that anybody, child, adult, could look up to and aspire to be as close to like as possible, minus the powers and everything else. Yes, he was unbelievable. Yes, he was a Boy Scout. Yes, 90% of the comic readers didn't want to read him half the time. But you know what? Let me be honest with you guys. Nobody's reading him now either. Nobody's reading him now, and they made him more gritty. They tried every single thing they could with Superman. They even had him going out with Wonder Woman, and his popularity still isn't completely there. The only Superman books that anyone's still talking about are Unchained and Superman Wonder Woman. Batman Superman is becoming a debacle, and whether it be the horrible artwork or the forgettable stories, there's nothing that you get out of that. Action Comics is the closest one to all the Superman books that has actual stories that you can remember. And Superman, either it's a forgettable story or it's something that's memorable but not something that's like, oh my god, spectacular either. And we won't get into Superboy or Supergirl. Adventures of Superman, I feel, is the strongest Superman book because it is Superman. That is the Superman, the definitive Superman, the Superman that everybody's grown up with. that is the true one. And the sad part is it does not take place in the New 52. It is a digital first story that is what's what I'm looking for? It's in its own universe. It's just writers writing stories for Superman. And you know what? Adventures of Superman is, in my eyes, one of the best, if not the best, Superman comics that comes out once a month. Because it is Superman. That is the Superman that should be in the New 52, regardless of how gritty and how dark and how realistic, or whatever you want to say, the more extreme DCU, if you want to say it that way. That's the Superman that should have been brought into the New 52. Unfortunately, they didn't want it to be as bright as the old DCU. They wanted to make it the New 52. They wanted to make it more modernized, more realistic, and unfortunately, I think a lot of characters, not a lot, a good deal of characters suffered through that. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good books from Superman, and I'm not saying there aren't good books for other superheroes. I think a lot of the books that are coming out of the New 52 are great. However, I don't even care if the New 52 stands forever. All I ask is, the one thing I would want for Christmas most of all is, A, I would want writers to understand that they are writing fantasy stories and be willing to push the envelope and stop trying to make it as realistic as possible. And then B, Superman. Please, somehow fix Superman. I really would love to see Superman fixed. Somehow. I don't even care if you keep the new costume. Fix the personality, bring the Kents back, do something to make him more like the Superman he was pre-New 52. And this is going out to the Schuster and Siegel family. Stop trying to get what you didn't create. Enough. You've put this suit out for years. It's been years. You lost. Give up. Get real jobs, which you probably have already. Stop trying to make more money. DC is going to win every suit you throw at them. Period. Already on the comic books, instead of it just saying created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, there's now an added line that says something to the effect of, as agreed to by the Siegel family. Now the Schuster family wants to. This is ridiculous. Leave Superman alone. Leave him alone. You guys, you're the nephews, so your uncles signed away their right to Superman, thus your family's right. Whatever you have now, be happy you have it and let it go. DC owns Superman. The end. This happened over 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago probably. I don't know what year the Siegel and Schuster thing happened where they signed it away to DC, but beside the point, they lost Superman. They signed him away to DC. It's over. The end. Now, on Marvel's side, everybody owns the big characters like Spider-Man and everything. Those are creator-owned characters that Marvel just puts out. But beside the point, DC owns Superman. Families give up. And DC, fix him. Put him back to the way he was, because it's apparent that people are either going to like him for the way he was or they're not going to like him at all. Changing his character is not going to bring in more sales for Superman, other than the Superman Wonder Woman book, and that's because you put Zod in it. And Superman Unchained because, let's face it, it's Scott Snyder and it's Jim Lee. What did you expect? It's an all-star team. So once they leave the book, we'll see if that still sells. But beside the point, I like Superman, but I would love to have my Superman back. And I feel like, sorry, I have a bit of a cold. And I feel like Adventures of Superman fulfills my want for the old Superman, but there's still a lot more want. And one book a month is just not filling that void that was left after the New 52 started. So I don't know what DC's planning. I mean, there are lots of speculations that the New 52 is somehow going to go back to the Earth Prime or to DCU original at some point. I doubt that's going to happen. I think this universe is here to stay. And look, it is what it is. I just wish that somehow, some way, we would get the characters back that we could look up to, because that's what kids need now more than anything. This world has become such a violent world, and video games are dominating everything. You talk to any kid from first grade up that can get their hands on a handheld system, an Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, the only games you're going to hear a lot of ramble on is Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Resident Evil, Halo, and Battlefield, among others that'll come popping out. Like this year, The Last of Us and Bioshock Infinite was another. Those two were hit video games, by the way. But once again, all those games that I just mentioned, though, involve heavy violence, lots of gunfights, and yeah, I mean, it's fun. Let's admit it, people. I play video games. Those games are fun. But for kids, I don't know. I just, as a soon-to-be dad, I don't know if I'd want my child playing that until he's much older, or at least he understands the fact between this is a video game and this is reality. Because when I was growing up, the only games I played were Mario, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, which, yeah, they did have a couple of violent games, but they weren't as violent as these games are. I mean, you can graphically see a guy stabbed in the face. I mean, guy stabbed in the face. You understand that? Stab him in the face. So, I don't know. I just... if comic books were... I mean, there was a huge thing where they're saying now comic books are for adults. Very true. A lot of kids don't read comics anymore. Why? Because they're addicted to games. And that stinks. But I do know that there are a few guys out there that they do play video games, but they also read comic books. And somewhere in that line, I mean, we want action in the comics, but there's so much violence out there. And then you're giving us newer characters that are more gritty, like Doc Ock is Spider-Man. I mean, granted, they're not going to keep it that way forever. It's impossible for it to stay that way forever, regardless of what people are saying. But you need some light, you know? That's what characters are supposed to bring. They're supposed to bring in the light when there's the darkness, which are the supervillains that bring in the darkness. The dark times happen, and then the superheroes come in, and they're that bright, shining light that everybody races, you know, they follow, they go towards when there's a problem. They're the ones that shine the light of hope into the world. And I think that's what a lot of comic books are forgetting about. That one word that makes a world of difference. Hope. Superman stood for that at one time. And does he stand for that anymore? I don't know. I feel like he's trying to, but he's just not. The old Superman was. This Superman is trying, but it's going to take him a while to get to where the old Superman was. And maybe one day he'll get there. Maybe this is the journey of Superman being the way he is now and then making it to the way he was when they rebooted the old DCU. Same thing with the movies. Maybe he's going to evolve into that Superman from the events in Man of Steel, which is why I can't hate the movie, because it could be the evolution of the character into the character that we all know and love. But once again, we need superheroes to portray hope again. Hope is the most important thing a superhero should portray, and a lot of people are starting to like these anti-heroes. Anti-heroes are fun in small doses, not in gigantic wads of crap every month, like tons and tons of anti-hero books. I feel like IDW, when I read the Turtle book, I feel like here are the Turtles. They're here to save the day. They're the good guys. They're going to stop the Shredder or Krang or whatever they're going up against that wants to destroy the world. Then I go over to DC, and Wonder Woman is still fighting her brothers and sisters who are gods because they somehow want this little baby, and I have no idea what it's about because I stopped reading that a long time ago. Or Batman is back in Zero Year where bones are growing all over the place, and it's like, what? What? I mean, Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern was amazing, and then it switched, and now it's like they're the cosmic bullies of the entire universes out there. What? Seriously, what? I mean, I thought Sinestro was bad, but the way Hal Jordan's going, he's going to be the new Sinestro, and Sinestro's going to be the new Green Lantern. I don't know. It's just my feeling, but I feel like comic books need to promote that hope again, especially from the big two, because I feel like everything right now is action, explosions, space, and everything, and there's not enough of, you know, just beating the bad guys, saving the day, you know, showing the world that in the end, the heroes are going to be there when something bad happens and they're going to save the world. It just feels like we don't get that much of that anymore. It feels like they are saving the world. They saved the world from Thanos in Marvel, and right now the crime syndicate's running rampant in the DCU, but the villains of all people are going to be the ones that save the DC universe. Yeah, that's right. The villains are going to be the ones that save the day because the Justice League are imprisoned. You tell me, if this was the old DCU, would that have ever happened? No, because the Justice League fought the crime syndicate several times before and beat them without getting imprisoned. Point, set, and match. So we need that again. We need the superheroes winning against the evil and beating the darkness back and shining that light of hope. That's what I want. I mean, I feel like I do get that sometimes, but I feel like we don't get that enough. All we're getting mostly from Marvel is events, and their timeline. Forget about their timeline. Whereas DC has a really strong timeline. They're not jumping around. Everything is in continuity, but it's like they're trying to erase the dividing line between them and Marvel, and they're trying to copy Marvel's universe. I mean, listen, I buy a lot of DC, and I buy a nice amount of Marvel. I like what I read. Would I like to see a little bit more of what they used to do? Absolutely. The 90s, I mean, gimmicks were high in the 90s, but I'm not asking for the gimmicks. I'm asking for brighter stories? I don't know. Once again, this is just my Christmas wish list, so to speak. Also, I wouldn't mind seeing the Runaways come back because everybody's been talking about it. I've heard about, I've heard a lot about the Runaways, obviously, for anybody who's watched my reviews way back when. So I would like to see a new Runaways series so I could actually read that myself. And there are a few other characters that have gone off into the, into the nothingness that I would like to see come back in the coming years, and we might get that. I mean, from what DC's promising more characters are going to start coming out in the new year, and I'm looking forward to a lot of things that are coming in 2014. I mean, there's a huge, instead of Infestation next year, we're going to have the X-Files crossing over with everything. That looks like it's going to be fun, but I don't want to get too much into what's going to happen next year because I want to save everything for next year for the last part of this vlog before Christmas. But that's what I would love to have for Christmas. My Superman back. Like, not the, I mean, even if it takes time to happen, that's fine. But at some point, I would like to have my Superman back. That's what I would love to have under my Christmas tree, my fantasy Christmas tree, so to speak. If you guys would like to leave a comment about what you would like, I mean, whether it be a change in a comic book or a comic book to come back or a certain writer to be writing a book, whatever, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and we can have our own little fantasy Christmas list in the comment section of this video. But that's just mine. That's one of the many things I would love to have, but you guys know how I feel about Superman, and I feel that I would just love to get a little bit more like the Superman before the New 52 happened. That's just the biggest thing, and we just need hope. I mean, that's the thing. Everything is like violence and guns and super fights, and yeah, we all love it. We all say, oh, this was an action-packed issue, it was awesome. But if you guys ever really sat down and thought about it, we live in a very violent world at this point in time, and I don't know, there are just times where I wish we could live in at least a little bit less of a violent world and more of a good guy just saves the day. Hope is reinstilled in the hearts and minds and souls of the people that are saved, and that's that. Just shine that bright light of hope sometimes. That's what we need. That's what we deep down we don't want to admit we want, but we do want it. We really do want to have that hope, and that's what I love to promote on not only my channel but on Brooklyn Boys and through Ink, and eventually when I start writing on Frontline, and everything I do, I've always said, and this was way back when I started this channel, I wanted to always promote the symbol, the meaning, and I just wanted to promote hope in general. That's what this world needs more now, more than ever, because now is when hope is needed. And we're, like I said, these aren't exactly bright times in the in our world either. We read comics to escape reality, but when we come back to reality, when we're done reading those books, this is a dark world at times, guys. It really is a dark world, and we need that hope. And I can only do so much with my channel, and I encourage any of you guys out there that make videos, encourage it. Aspire to putting some hope back into some people. I try to give hope to people by making them get something when they're done listening or watching my videos, and that's what we did on Brooklyn Boys, and we made tons of friends, and we brought a lot of people. Some people wrote us and said, you made me I was a very quiet person, but now thanks to you guys I feel like I have the strength to do blank, or I feel more confident in doing blank. And you know what, we did the stupidest videos in the world. So by doing the stupidest videos in the world and showing the world that, don't be afraid to do whatever you want, look stupid, run around naked in the background, Well, that was my job mostly. But beside the point, you gotta give hope, guys. You gotta promote it. You gotta make people see, there's still hope out there. So if you do videos, even if you do video games, even if you're doing Call of Duty or whatever, somehow find a way to promote a little bit of hope. Spread the light around, guys. This world needs light right now. It needs a lot of it, and we're not getting it from even the superheroes anymore. So we got to spread it ourselves. That's the one thing everybody should be doing nowadays. Spread the hope, spread the love, spread the good, and try not to spread too much bad. That's what I think. If more people gave hope, love, and happiness, there would be less darkness in this world. And the less darkness there is, the closer we come to living in a very peaceful world. I mean, let's admit it. It's going to take a very long time before we live in a world where it's completely and utterly, like 100%, there is no evil left in this world, peace. But you know what? You got to start somewhere. Maybe start from, maybe somebody who's listening to this video, it'll start once you finish listening to this video, and it'll just grow to another person, to another person, to another person, to another person. You just got to start it. Once you start it, it's like wildfire. You start a little bush fire, and it'll become a forest fire. That's what we need, a forest fire of good. It's like the domino effect. You knock one down, and you just start a row, and you never know how far those dominoes are going to fall before you make this entirely huge puzzle thing. I like those videos where you knock down one little row of dominoes and it made this huge picture. Those are cool. I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, that was part 2. Promote hope, guys. It's the most important thing in this world, and it's the most needed thing in this world right now. So if you come out of this video with anything other than putting, of course, your fantasy wish list or Christmas list at the bottom, in the bottom over there in the comments, I hope you also leave this video understanding that this world needs hope, and the more people that promote the good, the love and the hope, the stronger this world and the people in it will be, and the happier and brighter this world will be. So guys, thank you so much for sticking with me for part 2. Next week, either on Friday of this week, or again on Monday, Sunday, will be the final part. And the final part, I will spoil it here a little bit. Final part is going to be looking ahead, and I'm sure most of you guys already knew that was coming, so it's not going to be announcements. That's being saved for Dark Avenger Inc., but there are still things on my channel that I would like to talk about, and just looking forward in general, personal life wise, and just the year of 2014 wise. So until then, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. Feel free to leave comments below if you enjoyed this video, your fantasy Christmas list, so to speak. And don't forget, if you do videos, or if you write articles, or whatever you do and you're listening to this video, promote hope, promote light, promote love. Those are the most important things this world needs right now. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next video.